All right, it looks like we got booted out the first time, but we are back here for part two with Colonel Alvin Schwapp. So go ahead and join on in here. I'm going to see if I can tag some. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can bring Alvin back in here. Let me know that you are here. Go ahead and share some of the comments in the comments. We just got booted out. I don't know. Electronics can be funky sometimes, but we're back here. Darn, Facebook is right, Rhea. All right, good. I see you folks are joining back in. So go ahead, Alvin. Let's get you back in here because you have some amazing nuggets. And while he's joining on board, Ian's back. Fantastic. Jennifer's here. We are working with Colonel Alvin Schwapp. Today's part two. So we're going to go ahead and bring him in right now and get him in here. So sometimes we have a little bit of glitches, but today we're back in it where it's happening. Yes, we are back. So we are connected. There we go. I'm not sure what happened, so I apologize, but we're here now. So this is good. This is good.
Okay. Sorry about that. I do apologize for that.
No worries. Yeah. So Alex is here, Jennifer, Caroline. Who else is? We have a bunch of folks who are finding us again. Rhea's here. Ian's here. Let's see. A bunch of folks are popping on back right now. Caroline, if you don't mind, just tagging those folks and getting them back in here so that we can wrap this up. Yes, welcome to part two. There was liquid, there was gold happening right now. Gold, and then we froze. And I'm like, oh no.
That's all right. That's all right.
Michelle is back. Here we go. All right, great. So the folks are starting to join back on. Steve is back in a black sweatshirt, back in black, a sweatshirt now. So you unwound a little bit, Steve. Is that what it is? Fantastic. All right, so we'll let the other folks join on when they can and just continue our conversations here, if that works for you.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about, this effective line of communication that has to be respectful, that has to be progressive. Like you can't just have transaction all the time.
Right. And like I said, when you're dealing with those tough situations, if your goal should be to change the behavior but far too often these things become personal because the supervisor's misguided efforts makes it almost more punitive and it ends up being humiliating for the employee. And at that point, you just lost. When you went into the discussion with the advantage, knowing that you had a conscientious person who would basically just, fall on their sword because they understand their shortcomings and they can be a part of the solution. But now you go ahead and with a lack of maturity and judgment, you go and you turn an advantage into a disadvantage by making it something personal and humiliating for someone.
Yes.
So I would always say that, we just have to just be mindful of how we talk to people. And as I used to tell my police officers all the time, that person that's inside the car that you're about to give that ticket to, or you're having that encounter with, how would you want your loved ones to be interacting with a police officer? And how would you want them to be treated with a level of dignity and respect? And if you would want them to be treated appropriately and properly and fairly, then that's how you need to be treating people as well. And the same thing goes with subordinates, right? Because there's somebody's spouse, there's somebody's loved one, somebody's child, someone's significant other. And they're the valuable resource of that organization. You have absolutely no authority or you should not feel empowered at all to let your position disrespect that person just because of a violation of a policy, right? Have a discussion, be professional, be mature about it, and if you can handle that situation right, that person will be even a stronger advocate of you and your plan moving forward, because they know ultimately in their worst moment on that job, you treated them with dignity and respect, and that builds alliances.
Yeah, I love that. And it actually reminds me, we had a Chief Sartell came to our private group a few weeks ago and to look at the Good to Great book in the social sector for our crew. And he shared this story about this officer who pulled this single mom with a bunch of kids over, and she didn't have car seats. And he says, "Get the car seat." And then the next time he pulled her over, she didn't have car seats, right? And she's like, "I don't have money." He's like, "Get the car seats," right? And so this particular chief reads all of the tickets because it was a very small agency. And so he said, "Why are you giving this woman a $350 ticket? Like, what's the real purpose here, right? Punitive or to change behavior?" And so he says, "Can we think outside of the box a little bit about, what we can do to serve this woman and reach the goal, which is to help her kids be safe and her to be safe?" And so they went to, they had a grant where they had a bunch of car seats that they got for the grant. They picked up 3 car seats and they brought them to the woman's house and said, "Here are the car seats." And so it aligns. So, I mean, when you think about, what's the purpose, right? Is the purpose to humiliate somebody? Is the purpose to degrade them? No, the purpose is to teach them the skills, to give them the resources, to develop them so that they can be even more impactful. And I bet that woman, is less stressed because she doesn't have a $300 tab, but she also has a different relationship now with police because of the help that they gave her. And so when your story reminded me of Chief Sartell's story of that officer, because we're not talking about, being angry and being like, "You should have done this." We're talking about sitting back as leaders, coming to solutions that really rise people, not slam them down. So I love that conversation that we shared earlier. Sharon says, "That is part of the problem. Many leaders don't think that way." Yeah, and we're here to change that. There's a ton of love happening right now.
Yeah.
And so
true.
Leaders need to be thinking, and if you're listening to the Colonel right now, leaders need to be thinking, how do I, like, our job is to see into the future. Our job is to see where we want to go. And if we're degrading somebody, that's not going to get us there, right? So I love that you're nurturing them and saying, "All right, you screwed up. We all do that. You screwed up. How are we going to fix it?" Right?
Right. Yes. And I can tell you that, just being a combat vet, even more so than a police officer, but being a combat vet and experiencing the things that I have experienced, it really will take something significant for me to be totally outraged or just blown away by something. Because if it doesn't have a potential to kill me or to kill somebody else, we can manage through it. We can manage through it, right? So and it's okay, if it's a deadline or something that was just done out of procedure, that's okay. We're not going to make it be a crisis. We're not going to create more out of it than what's necessary when we can just address the situation and move on. And that's another thing that sometimes supervisors fail to do, is just address it and move on, instead of belaboring the point and grinding and beating that doggone nail to death. Address it, move out smartly, and everyone around you will appreciate it.
I love it.
People shouldn't have to keep reliving something that's been addressed already.
Exactly.
Unless they keep doing it.
Well, that's different. Yeah. That's different.
They keep doing it, then, I've been in organizations as well where I've had conversations and literally there was one command that I went to, which I knew was very challenged and quite frankly dysfunctional. And as I walked through the door, within a very short time, I had to counsel 18 of 36 people. Okay, and one of the civilians resigned because he was going to be terminated. So I've dealt with all types of challenges, and I understand that situations aren't always rosy. I've had soldiers who committed sexual assault and soldiers who committed murder, and I've had to give a flag to a family of a fallen soldier. So when I tell you I've been through a lot of scenarios and those things exist, I've been through a lot of challenges, but for the most part, if we're not dealing with something that's so insurmountable and just beyond the realm of normal conduct, we can get through it.
Yeah.
So we don't need to make things that are not mountains into mountains, because a lot of times we can control the narrative, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when people they lack that confidence and awareness and that love in themselves, they lose their minds.
Yeah.
They lose their minds and they make things much more than what they need to be. So as I said before, it really just comes down to just having that self-presence and knowledge and love and ability to effectively communicate, and you can get through almost all challenges. That's my belief, as long as we're not talking about violations of the law.
I love it. Nicole is asking if we can share this. Yeah, Nicole, if you came into this page and gave your email address, you're going to receive a link to these 2 sessions. If anyone else came into this page and they forgot to give their email, or they're not sure if they gave their email, you can send it right to Caroline Collins, and she'll make sure that you get on our email list and receive this video as well as other videos that we put together, because you're right, this is so important. And Nicole, if you think that there's a member of your community who you mentioned a few members, if you think there's a member of your community who could benefit from joining Tribe of Excellence, you are welcome to share. Alvin's the master of sharing. We still even have enough. You can only enroll 50 people at a time. I'm like, there's 1,000. So we're working on the rest of your friends, Alvin.
I'm the worst person to keep a secret. I'm the biggest snitch around. So if there's something good going on, trust me, I'm gonna put it out there.
I love it. I love it. And so the way you can share the group is just copying the top. Caroline or Michelle or Jen or Ria can throw it into the chat for you. And what it'll do is it'll prompt them to answer 2 questions. We try to weed out solicitors. Last thing I want is for someone to reach out to Alvin and say, well, can you buy this, right? So we try to weed those folks out. I mean, if someone get in, you let us know, we'll boot them. But we also generate our email lists from that information as well. So you'll get a weekly email saying, hey, did you miss Alvin's 2 episodes? Link, click right here. So if you have not submitted your email, send it to Caroline Collins. Right now she's here today, so you can just click on her name and send it off to her. And if you have already submitted it, but you want to share with some other friends, you can definitely share our group and have them come on in, or you can just share the links, whatever works for you. Caroline Calendar Collins. Yes, exactly. Stacy is saying thank you so much. She thinks this is awesome. Nicole. Oh, good. Yes, Nicole, he enrolled you. Alvin, you enrolled Nicole. Great. Fantastic. And let's see. Ron. Yeah, Ron said not everything is found in books or manuals. Yeah, you got to think like Gumby and be a flexible leader and really have that bigger vision in mind. Kurt asks, how do you handle the don't snitch mentality when dealing with a problem?
The don't snitch mentality with dealing with a problem. What I would say is you need to cultivate an atmosphere within the organization where the organization is of the foremost thought in everyone's minds, right? And then once you cultivate that environment, then people need to have a safe way of sharing their information without any potential exposure or compromise to themselves, because when it would be challenging for a subordinate to speak about another subordinate. So you have to recognize those very real dynamics that exist, because they could be working together, they could have some close ties, they could be godparents to each other's children, but yet they're just on different wavelengths in terms of professionalism, and they care enough to say something about it. So you have a duty, you have an absolute duty to protect them in that capacity, as they care enough to share their concerns, so that issues within the organization can be addressed. So, and once again, when you start to talk about these things, there's civil, or there's policy violations, there's civil, and there's actual criminal. So, but I think as long as people know and they trust you, right? When you give someone your word, it should mean something. and it should never be compromised. And if you know you can't give your word, then don't give your word. Say what you'll try to do, but be as honest and forthright as all times. But once you give your word to a subordinate, the worst thing you can do is to go back on that and put them in a situation where now they can be subject to some type of undue harm as a result of you compromising them.
Awesome, awesome. We have another question if you're up for it.
Yes.
Renee says, how about the constant pushback that she might get without saying, because I said so? Like how do you deal with those subordinates who, you know, who are just like, and you're just like, oh, because I said so, right?
Okay, so you know, it's a thing, right? And you can say, okay, well, guess what? The hat's on you now. Hat's on you. Help me to understand why this is a challenge. Help me to see another way of doing this. Help me to see why what I'm saying is not a better way for the organization. Let's just have a discussion. Let's have a discussion, and you're not trying to be a smart, tale about it. You're just honestly saying, okay, help me to see your perspective. Yeah. Okay, because now I'm gonna put you in my seat. Okay, and here's my responsibilities, right? And here's what I'm committed to doing for this organization. So help me to see what I'm doing is not in the betterment of the organization. And you know what? If you do, and if I'm buying what you're selling, we're gonna go with it. And mean that. I like so I have no problems and putting that hat on somebody else, and now you help me to understand, because I have clarity on this, but you may be able to help me see something I don't see because of your insight. I'm willing to listen to it right now. Yeah,
I love it. So the humility behind it, the open communication, I love it. Renee, if that did not answer your question fully, go ahead and plug it in. That sounded great. I love that. Alex asks, do you have any ideas how to deal with supervisors who have favorites?
Now, I need to know the perspective of the question. Is he speaking as someone who reports to a supervisor and he's at the same level as a potential favorites, or is he watching it from a supervisor perspective and he's watching another supervisor engage in favoritism? I'm just trying to understand that to be better able to answer.
Good question, Alex. So go ahead and give a little bit more clarification on some of the background of that so he can best answer it for you. Jen says, yes, Jen, get shoulder to shoulder with folks and try to see from their perspective. And that really brings us back to this, impact versus intention, right? What we intend to do is not always the impact, and having those conversations to ensure that we are having that same impact that we intended to have. Alex says, I'm watching it from another division and people were complaining about the supervisor having favorites, essentially.
Okay, so he's at that same level as that other supervisor?
It sounds like she's in a completely separate unit and just watching some, some favoritism go on. And I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you.
I'll create the scenario then, since I'm a bit unsure, okay? All right, so if that person is a supervisor as well, right, and they're watching the actions of another supervisor, then they have a duty to go to that supervisor and say, let me make you aware of something that you may not be aware of. And whether it's actual or perceived, at this point, it really doesn't matter, because the end result is it's having an impact.
Yeah.
And I'm certain as a professional, and I value you as a professional,
yes,
and I want you to succeed as my peer, I'm going to share this information with you. And one thing I always tell people, when I'm in leadership role, is good, bad, or indifferent, I value all information. So give it to me. So I would approach that person by saying, you know what, I would hope you're going to appreciate what I'm saying, good, bad, or indifferent, because as a professional, we all want to strive to achieve success. And success for us is making sure that the organization succeeds. It succeeds through people. And you manage people, and there's a perception that this is going on in your team, you may want to give that some attention so that that perception is addressed, and and it could basically be resolved so that there is no adverse repercussions to the effectiveness of the organization, right? So now, if that person is subordinate to that division, then they should bring that through the chain of command, and address that. Now, if they know the person who is not in favor, right, and they have that person's ear, and that person is feeling like, you know what, I have nowhere to go, they should encourage that person to go to HR. And voice their concerns, and HR is always going to be that conduit to try to bridge gaps and to help resolve those types of matters within an organization.
I love it. I love that you started off with pointing everyone toward the mission. We're in this together. Let's figure out some solutions because this is going on and we're all wanting to move together. I love that. So we have a ton of people who are just loving it. Yes, focusing on the why. That's right. Yes, Alex says, thank you, sir. Kurt says, how have you managed to hold your family together while giving so much time to your country? What a great question. And I think that's actually going to be our last question because we're almost at the 3 o'clock mark, right? So can that be the last question? And if you have other questions, is it okay if I personally reach out to you, Alvin, and get some of the other questions that might be in the replay, folks?
By all means, by all means. Yeah, it starts with marrying a saint, okay? So, you know, so that's the first one, because if your six, as we call it in the military, if your six isn't covered, then what you do as a soldier, it's going to be ineffective because you're always worried about what's going on at home. So just continuing to nourish and cultivate and have those strong relationships at home. It's you know, I'd enjoy the service. My entire family joined the service, right? Because we're all in this together. So just understanding that they too serve, and respecting their sacrifice as well, and then trying to make up for things that you know that you can't possibly make up for, to be honest with you, but just respecting and trying to always cultivate those relationships through communication is key.
Yeah.
So as a cop, it's tough, and as a soldier, it's tough. You know, you're constantly missing those special engagements and moments, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's just a path, and you hope to have built that resiliency within your family so that they understand. You know, all my kids are service oriented. My son's a candidate in the Super Academy right now. I have a daughter that teaches, and another one that's in senior year of high school. And my wife works for the City of Hartford Department of Health and Human Services. So we're all service oriented, and understand that there's a bigger mission than just us ourselves, and that sort of rubs off on the whole crew.
I love it. Well, great advice. Be super intentional about your home life and really creating that work-life integration, essentially. So fantastic. So this has been an absolute pleasure. You know, from the moment that we connected on LinkedIn to everything in between, you know, to the video of you dancing. I won't tell anyone else about that. You are just this upbeat, you know, just like what people aspire to be. So thank you for being here with our team, and maybe I can rope you into doing something with our private group so that they get a little one-on-one love from you. But we really appreciate everything that you do, and wish you, you know, this, for me, you know, hearing what you're saying has been extremely impactful, and I know that it's impactful for the folks here because I can see all their comments. And I know the folks who are going to be listening to this replay, let us know that you're listening to the replay, and what you're getting from this, what you're going to shift in your own leadership development as a result of this. And so I just want to personally thank you, you know, for being here with us, for dedicating your time, you're volunteering your time with us, and that is commendable. So thank you for that, and for all of your service. So we appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Dawn. And like I say at the onset, the honor is mine to be a part of this. And I'll leave with one thought. And that's for your team to remember that I love me some me. All right. And I want them to love themselves as well, and have fun, right? Life is too short to not enjoy what you're doing. And each and every day that you get to influence and motivate others to achieve success as a leader, that's a blessing. Take advantage of that blessing and never take it for granted.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. All right. We'll be in touch real soon. I appreciate you. And you all have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you guys real soon. See you next Thursday at 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.